What happens when a nun discovers a secret that could kill her, and the only person who can save her is a man who lives like a beast deep in the mountains? October 1892. The Appalachian wilderness stretched dark and endless under a moonless sky. Sister Katherine Morgan ran through the forest, her black habit torn and mud-stained, her breath coming in ragged gasps that tore at her throat. In her arms, clutched against her chest like a child, was a leather-bound ledger. The book that would either save her life or end it. Behind her, the sound of horses crashed through the underbrush. Men's voices called out, rough and cruel in the night. "Find her! Don't let that woman escape!" Sheriff Clayton Wade's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. "Father Dominic wants her dead. No witnesses. You understand?" Catherine's foot caught on a root. She stumbled, tried to catch herself, but momentum carried her forward. The ground disappeared beneath her feet. She was falling, tumbling down a rocky slope, branches whipping at her face and hands. The ledger flew from her grasp. She heard it land somewhere in the darkness below, heard herself cry out as her head struck stone. Then nothing but silence and the smell of wet earth. Dawn broke cold and gray over the mountains. Elijah Stone moved through the forest with the silent efficiency of a man who had lived alone for 7 years. At 36, he was more mountain than man. 6'3", shoulders broad as a bear, hands calloused and scarred from years of trapping and hunting. His hair hung long past his shoulders, tied back with leather cord. His beard was thick and unkempt, more wilderness than civilization. A scar ran from his left temple down to his jaw, a souvenir from Gettysburg that he rarely thought about anymore. He was checking his rabbit snares near the creek when he heard it, a sound so faint he almost missed it. A moan, low and pained. Eli froze. His hand went instinctively to the knife at his belt. In these mountains, injured animals were dangerous. A wounded bear or mountain lion would attack anything that came near. But something about the sound made him pause. It was too human. He approached carefully, following the sound to a thicket of mountain laurel. There, half buried in leaves and mud, lay a woman. Her black habit was torn nearly to shreds. Blood matted her dark hair. Her face was pale as death, lips cracked and bleeding. But she was breathing. Eli knelt beside her. His massive hands, so used to skinning animals and setting traps, moved with surprising gentleness as he checked her injuries. The head wound looked worse than it was, a gash above her left eyebrow that had bled profusely but wasn't deep. Her breathing was steady, no broken bones that he could feel. His eyes caught something in the leaves nearby, a leather book, its cover embossed with gold lettering. He picked it up, flipped it open. Pages of numbers, dates, names, money changing hands. This was a ledger of some kind, meticulously kept. He looked down at the woman, then back toward the town of Blackwood Ridge, visible in the valley below. Smoke rose from the church steeple, the place he hadn't visited in 7 years, the place he'd left behind when civilization had proven itself more savage than any wilderness. "Damn fool," he muttered to himself. "What's a nun doing running through the forest alone?" But even as he said it, he knew. The blood on her habit wasn't all from the fall. Someone had been chasing her, hunting her. Eli Stone had spent 7 years avoiding other people's problems. 7 years telling himself that he was done with the violence and betrayal of the world beyond these mountains. 7 years living by one simple rule: survive and let everyone else figure out their own lives. But as he looked down at this woman, unconscious and vulnerable, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. The weight of a choice, the burden of being able to help someone and choosing not to. He thought of William, his friend from the war, the man he'd left behind on that battlefield because he'd been too afraid to go back. The man who died alone while Eli ran. "Not again," he said quietly. He lifted the woman as easily as if she were a child. She weighed nothing in his arms. He tucked the ledger into his belt, adjusted her weight against his chest, and began the climb back to his cabin. It would take an hour, moving carefully through terrain that most men couldn't navigate even without carrying someone. But Eli knew these mountains like he knew his own heartbeat. Every rock, every tree, every hidden path. As he walked, the woman stirred against him. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and wild with fear. "The book," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "They'll kill me for the book." Easy, Eli said, his voice a low rumble. You're safe. Her eyes focused on him for just a moment. He saw the fear there, but also something else. Recognition that she was being carried by a stranger. A man who looked more beast than human, with his wild hair and scarred face. Then her eyes closed again, and she went limp in his arms. Eli's cabin sat in a clearing halfway up the mountain, hidden from any trail by thick forest. It was small but solid, built from logs he'd cut himself. Animal pelts covered the floor and walls. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Shelves held traps, knives, ammunition, dried meat, and herbs. It smelled of wood smoke and leather and the wild. He laid the woman on his bed, the only bed in the single-room cabin. It was covered with deer hide and bear fur, surprisingly soft and warm. He built up the fire until the room filled with heat and light. Then he set about treating her injuries. He'd learned field medicine during the war, the hard way, watching men die from wounds that should have been survivable. He cleaned the gash on her head with water boiled over the fire, applied a poultice of yarrow and golden seal that he kept for his own injuries. He checked her ribs, her arms, her legs. Nothing broken, just bruises and scrapes and that head wound. As he worked, he studied her face. She was young, maybe 28 or 30, not beautiful in the way of the women in town with their powders and perfumes, but striking. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that even cracked and bleeding had a determined set to them. This was not a woman who quit easily. Her eyelids fluttered. She was waking up. Meanwhile, in Blackwood Ridge, Sheriff Clayton Wade stood in Father Dominic Blackwell's private office. The room reeked of cigar smoke and expensive brandy. Father Dominic sat behind his massive oak desk, his round face red and sweating despite the cool October morning. His pudgy fingers drummed nervously on the desk surface. "You're certain she's dead?" Father Dominic asked. His voice was honey-sweet, the kind of voice that had convinced hundreds of parishioners to part with their money over the years. But now it trembled slightly. Wade nodded. "Fell down the ravine by Morrison Creek. Nobody survives a fall like that. And even if she did, she'd be dead from exposure by now. It's been a whole night." Father Dominic's eyes narrowed. "Did you find the body?" "The ravine is deep, Father, full of thorns and rocks. It'd take a week to search it properly." "Then search it." Father Dominic stood, his considerable bulk making the chair creak. "I want to see the body, and I want that ledger. Do you understand me? If anyone finds that book, if anyone reads what's in it, we're both finished." Wade shifted uncomfortably. "What about the railroad men? They're coming next week, which is why we need to find that ledger now." Father Dominic walked to the window, looked out at his town, his church, his kingdom. 2,000 acres of Cherokee land, $50,000. All of it ours, Wade, all of it. But only if that nun and her evidence disappear completely. What if someone asked questions? People knew she was here. They'll wonder where she went. Father Dominic turned, and his round, jovial face was suddenly cold as winter stone. "Then we tell them the truth. Sister Katherine couldn't handle the isolation of religious life. She had a breakdown. Ran off into the wilderness. Tragic, really. We tried to find her, but..." He shrugged. "God's will is mysterious." Wade nodded slowly. "And the Cherokee?" "Chief Red Sky Walker is an old fool who can't read English contracts. By the time he realizes what he signed, the land will be legally ours and there's nothing he can do about it." The sheriff left, and Father Dominic poured himself 3 fingers of brandy despite the early hour. His hands were shaking. Everything he'd built, all his careful planning, threatened by one curious nun who couldn't mind her own business. He drained the glass and poured another. Back in the cabin, Katherine's eyes opened fully. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was rough logs. Firelight danced across them. The air smelled of smoke and something cooking, something that smelled surprisingly good. She tried to sit up. Pain exploded through her head, and she gasped. "Don't move!" The voice was deep, masculine, with a rough edge like stone grinding on stone. She turned her head carefully. A man stood by the fireplace, stirring something in a pot. He was massive, his shoulders so broad they seemed to fill the small cabin. Long hair the color of dark honey hung past his shoulders. His beard was thick and wild. When he turned toward her, she saw the scar that bisected his face, saw eyes the color of winter sky. You already said that. He walked toward her, and she instinctively pressed back against the headboard. He stopped. Easy, I'm not going to hurt you. He held out a tin cup filled with water. She stared at it, then at him. Drink, he said, you've been unconscious for hours. She reached for the cup, but her hands were shaking too badly. Water sloshed over the rim. Without a word, the man sat down on the edge of the bed. The whole frame creaked under his weight. He took the cup back from her hands. I can do it myself, she protested. You're spilling it all over my furs. There was something in his voice, not quite humor, but close. Open your mouth. She did. He held the cup to her lips, tilted it carefully. The water was cold and clear, and the best thing she'd ever tasted. She drank greedily until the cup was empty. More? She nodded. He refilled it from a bucket, held it for her again. This time she drank more, slowly. Thank you, she said when she finished. He grunted and stood up, walked back to the fireplace. I made soup, rabbit. You should eat. I don't know if I can. You will. Your body needs fuel. He ladled soup into a wooden bowl, brought it back to the bed. She tried to take it, but her hands were still shaking. He sat down again, scooped up a spoonful, held it toward her mouth. I'm not a child, she said, but there was no heat in it. No, but you're injured and weak, and I don't know how to wash nun clothes. He raised an eyebrow. So either you let me feed you, or you wear those rags until you're strong enough to clean them yourself. Despite everything, despite her fear and pain and confusion, Katherine felt the corner of her mouth twitch, almost a smile. That's your concern? Laundry? I live alone. I have many concerns. Laundry is one of them. She opened her mouth and let him feed her. The soup was good. Better than good. Herbs she couldn't identify gave it a complex, earthy flavor. The meat was tender. For several minutes they sat in silence, him spooning soup into her mouth with the patience of someone feeding a small animal, her trying not to think about how strange this all was. Who are you? She asked finally. The man who just saved your life. That's not a name. Elijah Stone. Most people call me Eli. I'm Katherine, Sister Katherine Morgan. I know, your habit gave it away. He gestured at her torn black dress. Though it's more rags than habit now. Where are we? My cabin, about an hour's climb from where I found you. Found me? You fell down a ravine, hit your head. You've been unconscious most of the day. He set the empty bowl aside. The real question isn't where you are. It's why you were running through the forest alone with a stolen ledger. Her face paled. How did you... He pulled the leather book from his belt, held it up. You were holding this when I found you. Still are, technically. I just borrowed it while you were sleeping. You read it? Enough. His gray eyes were steady on hers. Father Dominic's been busy, stealing from the Cherokee, forging documents, skimming from the church charity fund. He paused. This is the kind of evidence that could put a man in prison for 20 years. Katherine's throat tightened. Then you know why they're hunting me. Who's they? Sheriff Wade and his men. Father Dominic sent them. I heard him give the order. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He told them to make sure I didn't survive. Eli was quiet for a long moment, his scarred face unreadable. Then he stood, walked to the window, looked out at the darkening forest. You can't go back to town, he said. I know. They think you're dead. That fall was long enough to kill someone. If you're smart, you'll stay dead. My father, Katherine said, her voice breaking. He's in Blackwood Ridge. He's a blacksmith. Father Dominic has been threatening him, forcing him into debt. If I don't go back, if Father Dominic thinks I'm dead, he might hurt my father worse. Eli turned to face her. Your father is already in danger whether you're alive or dead. Going back won't change that. It'll just get you killed too. Then what am I supposed to do? Hide in the mountains forever? No. Eli walked back to her, and for the first time she saw something in his eyes besides cold efficiency. A flicker of something human. Something that might have been anger on her behalf. You're supposed to fight back, but smart, not by running back to town and getting yourself killed. How? I don't know yet. He looked down at the ledger in his hand. But this book is proof, evidence of fraud and theft. If we can get it to the right people, People Dominic doesn't control, maybe we can stop him. Who would believe a nun and a mountain hermit against a priest and a sheriff? Eli smiled then, and it changed his entire face. Made him look younger, less like a beast and more like a man who'd once known how to laugh. Nobody, which is why we're not going to them. They're going to come to us. Katherine stared at him. I don't understand. You will. He pulled a stool over to the bedside, sat down so they were eye level. But first you need to tell me everything. Every detail, from the beginning. Why were you in Father Dominic's office? What made you look at his books? So she told him. It poured out of her, all the fear and anger and confusion of the past 3 days. She told him how she'd been assigned to clean Father Dominic's private study, how she'd seen the ledger left open on his desk, how she'd recognized Chief Red Skywalker's name and had been curious. The Cherokee chief was well known in the region, a man of honor who'd fought to keep his people's remaining lands safe. She told Eli how she'd read the entries, how she'd realized that Father Dominic had forged documents to sell Cherokee land to the Pacific Western Railroad Company, how he'd pocketed the money meant for charity, money donated by poor families who could barely afford to eat. I couldn't just do nothing, she said. I couldn't know about it and stay silent. So you took the book. I was going to bring it to the marshal in Silverton, the federal marshal. I thought he could stop it. But Dominic caught you. She nodded. I was leaving through the back of the church. He saw me. The ledger was in my hands. He knew immediately what I'd done. She closed her eyes, remembering. He called for Sheriff Wade, told him to take care of it quietly. I ran into the forest. I didn't know where else to go. I just knew I couldn't let them catch me with the book. Eli stood, paced to the fireplace. His shadow loomed huge against the wall. Father Dominic is expecting the railroad representatives next week? Yes. October 25th. They're coming to finalize the sale and transfer the money. 6 days from now. Yes, he turned to face her. Then we have 6 days to stop him. 6 days to expose what he's done before that deal goes through and the Cherokee lose everything. But how? We're one woman and one man against a priest who controls the whole town. I know someone who can help. Eli's expression was grim. Chief Red Skywalker. If he knows what's been done to him, if he has proof, he can stop the sale. He can demand federal intervention. But getting to him means traveling through territory where Father Dominic's men are searching for me. Yes. So we'd be risking both our lives. Eli looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked to the shelf, pulled down a small hunting knife in a leather sheath. He brought it back to her, held it out. This is yours now. Keep it with you. Always, even when you sleep. Katherine took the knife with trembling hands. It was light, well-balanced, the blade sharp enough to catch the firelight. I've never used a knife as a weapon. You will if you need to. Eli's large hand closed over hers, steadying it. His palm was rough with calluses, warm, solid. But I won't let it come to that, I promise. She looked up at him, at this man who looked like something from a nightmare, wild and scarred and massive. But his eyes were steady, honest. When he made a promise, she believed he would keep it. Why are you helping me? She whispered. You don't know me. This isn't your fight. Eli was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he pulled his hand back, stood, walked to the window again. During the war, he said quietly, I had a friend, William. He was younger than me, 19. We fought together at Gettysburg. He touched the scar on his face absently. When the artillery came, I ran. I was so afraid of dying that I just ran. William called after me, called my name, told me he was hit, that he couldn't move, but I kept running. The cabin was silent except for the crackle of the fire. I went back 3 hours later when the shelling stopped. I told myself I would find him, that maybe he was still alive. Eli's voice was flat, emotionless. He was dead, had been for hours. He died alone because I was too afraid to go back for him. Katherine felt tears prick her eyes. That wasn't your fault. You were terrified. It was war. I know. He turned to face her. Everyone told me that. The chaplain, the other men, they all said it wasn't my fault, that I couldn't have saved him anyway. And maybe they're right, but I've had to live with it every day for 7 years. Every single day I see his face, I hear him calling my name. He walked back to her bedside. So when I found you in those woods, when I saw you hurt and hunted, I had a choice. I could walk away, save myself, keep living up here alone, where other people's problems can't touch me. Or I could do what I should have done 7 years ago. I could stay. I could fight. Katherine reached out and took his hand. His fingers dwarfed hers, rough and scarred, but they didn't frighten her anymore. Thank you, she said. He nodded once, then pulled his hand away gently. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll start teaching you how to survive in these mountains. If we're going to travel to the Cherokee lands, you need to know how to move without leaving a trail, how to identify threats, how to defend yourself. Will you teach me to shoot? If there's time. He pulled a blanket over her. But the best defense is not being seen at all. We'll focus on that first. As darkness fell completely outside, Katherine lay in the warm bed and watched Eli move around the cabin. He banked the fire, checked his traps and weapons, prepared his own sleeping spot on the floor near the hearth. Efficient movements, no wasted motion. A man completely at home in his isolation. But he'd chosen not to be isolated. Not this time. He'd chosen to help her. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 days, she felt something besides terror. She felt hope. The next morning, Katherine woke to find Eli already up and moving. Gray dawn light filtered through the cabin's single window. He was at the table, sharpening a knife with long, practiced strokes of a whetstone. "How's your head?" he asked without looking up. She touched the bandage gingerly. It hurt, but the stabbing pain from yesterday had dulled to a steady ache. Better. Can you stand? She pushed herself upright, slowly testing. Her body protested but obeyed. Yes. Then we start today. Come outside when you're ready. He finished with the knife, slid it into a sheath at his belt, and walked out without waiting for her response. Katherine stood carefully. Her legs felt weak but functional. She looked down at her torn habit, grimaced, then found a bucket of clean water by the hearth and a piece of rough cloth. She cleaned herself as best she could, finger-combed her short hair. When she stepped outside, the mountain morning took her breath away. The cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by towering pines and oaks. Mist clung to the ground in patches. Birds sang in the trees. The air was so clean and cold it made her lungs ache. Eli stood 20 yards away in a patch of sunlight. Come here. She walked to him. He was holding a thick branch about 6 feet long. This is your walking stick. From now on, you carry it everywhere. He handed it to her. It was surprisingly light, peeled smooth. It helps with balance on steep ground. It can test for loose rocks, and if necessary, it's a weapon. I thought you said the best defense was not being seen. It is, but second best is being able to defend yourself when you are seen. He gestured to the forest edge. We're going to walk. I'm going to teach you how to move through the wilderness, how to read the land, how to disappear. For the next 3 hours, Eli taught her the basics of wilderness survival. He showed her how to step on rocks instead of soft earth to avoid leaving tracks, how to move through underbrush without making noise, how to identify animal trails and avoid them because that's where predators hunted. He taught her which plants were edible and which were poison, showed her how to find water by following animal paths and listening for streams, explained how to read the sun and stars for direction. Katherine absorbed it all desperately. This wasn't the world of books and prayers she'd known in the convent. This was raw survival, life and death made simple. You're learning what, Eli said as they paused by a creek for water. Most people from town can't walk 2 miles in these mountains without getting lost. I need to learn fast. My life depends on it. She knelt by the water, cupped her hands, and drank. If Father Dominic's men find us, I need to be able to run. Or hide. Eli pointed to a hollow beneath an overturned tree. That's the key. Don't run in a straight line. Move, then hide. Move, then hide. Predators follow motion. If you stop moving, they lose you. Is that what you did during the war? He was quiet for a moment. Yes, that's how I survived. They walked back to the cabin as the sun climbed toward noon. Katherine's legs ached and her head throbbed, but she felt stronger, more capable. As they approached the clearing, Eli suddenly held up his hand. Stop. Katherine froze. He tilted his head, listening. Then she heard it too, the distant sound of horses, men's voices. Eli's face went hard. Inside. Now. Don't make a sound. They ran for the cabin. Eli pulled her inside, shut the door quietly. He went to the window, peered through a gap in the shutters. 3 men on horseback were entering the clearing from the east. They wore rough clothes, carried rifles. One of them was pointing toward the cabin. "Sheriff's deputies," Eli said quietly. "They're searching the mountain." Katherine's heart hammered. "Did they track us here?" "No, we left no trail." He pulled his own rifle down from above the door. "They're just doing a sweep, checking every cabin and hunter's camp." It was only a matter of time. The 3 men stopped 50 yards from the cabin. One of them called out, "Anyone home? We're looking for a missing woman. Sister Katherine from St. Mary's. She may be injured or lost." Eli didn't answer. The man called again. "Father Dominic is worried about her. There's a reward for anyone who helps find her. $500. Still no answer. The 3 men looked at each other. Then one dismounted, started walking toward the cabin. Eli checked his rifle. "If they try to come inside, I'll have to stop them." "No." Katherine grabbed his arm. "If you shoot them, more will come. The whole sheriff's department will hunt you. I won't let them take you." "They won't." She made a decision. "Stay here. Don't show yourself." Before he could stop her, she opened the door and stepped out into the morning sun. The 3 men froze. The one approaching the cabin raised his rifle halfway before stopping himself. She was clearly unarmed, clearly not a threat. "Sister Katherine?" The man who'd called out came forward. He was younger than the others, maybe 30, with a weak chin and nervous eyes. "Thank God. Everyone thought you were dead." "As you can see, I'm not." Katherine kept her voice steady. "What do you want?" "Father Dominic sent us to find you. He's worried sick. Says you took something from his office, that you might be confused or ill." "I'm not confused. I'm perfectly clear." "Then come back with us. Father Dominic just wants to talk to you. Work this all out." "No." And the 3 men exchanged glances. The leader tried a smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "Sister, I'm afraid I have to insist. If you don't come willingly, I have orders to bring you back by force." "Whose orders? The sheriff's? Or Father Dominic's?" The young man's smile faded. "Does it matter?" "Yes." Katherine took a step forward. "Because the sheriff takes orders from a priest who's been stealing from the poor and defrauding the Cherokee tribe. I have proof. A ledger showing every illegal transaction." The men shifted uncomfortably. One of them looked ready to bolt. "That's crazy talk," the leader said, but there was doubt in his voice now. "Sid, ask yourself why Father Dominic wants me back so badly. Why he's offering $500 for my return. That's a fortune, more than any missing nun is worth." She pointed at him. "Unless that nun has something he desperately needs. Something that could destroy him." The 3 men were quiet. She could see it in their faces. They didn't want to believe her, but they couldn't quite dismiss her words either. Then behind her, the cabin door opened. Eli stepped out, rifle in hand. The 3 men's horses spooked. The riders fought to control them. Eli didn't point the rifle at anyone, just held it casually across his chest. But his presence changed everything. He was enormous, wild-looking, clearly dangerous. Not the kind of man you wanted to fight. "The lady said no," Eli said, his voice carried easily across the clearing. "Now get off my land." The leader's hand went to his pistol. Eli's rifle shifted slightly. Not aiming, just ready. "You're harboring a fugitive," the man said. "She's not a fugitive. She's a witness to crimes committed by your boss's boss." Eli took a step forward. "And if you try to take her, I'll put you in the ground. All 3 of you. Your choice." For a long moment, nobody moved. The standoff hung in the cool mountain air. Then the leader jerked his horse's head around. "This isn't over. We're coming back with reinforcements." "You do that." Eli's smile was cold. "I'll be waiting." The 3 men rode off fast, disappearing into the trees. Katherine realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, turned to face Eli. "They'll come back," she said. "With more men. Maybe with Sheriff Wade himself." "I know." Eli lowered his rifle. "Which means we can't stay here. We leave tonight. Head for Cherokee territory." He looked at her. "You did well out there. Stayed calm. Made them doubt." I just told the truth. That's more powerful than you think. He gestured toward the cabin. Come on, we need to pack supplies and get ready. We have one chance to do this right. If we fail, Father Dominic wins. The Cherokee lose their land. And you and I end up dead in these mountains with nobody knowing why. Katherine followed him inside. As she gathered supplies under his direction, she thought about what she'd seen in those men's faces. Doubt, fear, uncertainty. Maybe Eli was right. Maybe the truth was powerful enough to fight back with. She touched the knife at her belt. Tomorrow they would begin the real journey. Into danger. Into the unknown. But for the first time since she'd fled Father Dominic's church, Katherine Morgan didn't feel like a victim running from death. She felt like a woman preparing for battle. The night fell fast in the mountains. Eli moved through the cabin with the efficiency of a man who'd done this before, packing supplies into 2 leather rucksacks. Dried venison, hardtack, a small cook pot, flint and steel, rope, ammunition. Everything they'd need to survive a 3-day journey through wilderness. Katherine watched him work, her own hands busy rolling blankets and securing them with leather straps. How far is it to Cherokee territory? 2 days hard travel if the weather holds. 3 if it doesn't. Eli checked his rifle, then a second smaller one he pulled from beneath the floorboards. We'll move at night for the first leg. Harder to track, harder to see. I've never traveled at night. You'll learn. He held out the smaller rifle. Can you shoot? I've never touched a gun. Then you start now. He showed her how to hold it, how to sight down the barrel, how to work the bolt action. His hands were patient, positioning her grip until it felt natural. The recoil will surprise you the first time. Don't fight it. Let your shoulder absorb it. When will I fire it? Hopefully never. But if you have to, aim for the largest part of your target. Center mass. Don't try for anything fancy. His gray eyes were serious. And Sister Katherine, if you have to shoot someone to save your life, don't hesitate. Hesitation gets you killed. She nodded, trying to keep her hands from shaking. This was so far from the world she'd known. The quiet prayers and simple routines of convent life seemed like another lifetime now. They left the cabin 2 hours after sunset when the moon was just starting to rise. Eli had given her darker clothes, old hunting garments that hung loose on her smaller frame, but allowed her to move freely. He'd shown her how to blacken her face with ash from the fire so her pale skin wouldn't catch moonlight. The forest at night was a different world. Every sound amplified. The hoot of an owl made her jump. The crack of a branch under her foot sounded like a gunshot. But Eli moved through it all like a ghost, his large frame somehow silent despite his size. They walked for hours, up steep slopes, down into valleys, across streams where the water ran so cold it made her feet ache. Katherine's legs burned, her lungs screamed for air, but she didn't complain, didn't ask to rest. She just followed Eli's broad back and put one foot in front of the other. Just before dawn, they stopped in a natural shelter formed by an overhanging cliff. Eli built a tiny fire, barely enough to boil water for coffee. They ate cold venison and hardtack in silence. You did well, Eli said finally. Better than I expected. Katherine almost laughed. I can barely stand. But you didn't quit. That's what matters. He poured her coffee, the steam rising in the cold morning air. Most people from town would have given up hours ago. She wrapped her hands around the tin cup, let the warmth seep into her fingers. I don't have the luxury of quitting. They rested for 3 hours while the sun climbed. Eli took first watch, sitting at the mouth of their shelter with his rifle across his knees. Katherine tried to sleep, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. Images of Father Dominic's red, sweating face, Sheriff Wade's cold eyes, the 3 men on horseback who would certainly report back that she was alive. When she finally dozed off, she dreamed of falling, endless falling through darkness. She woke to find Eli shaking her shoulder. Time to move. Sun's past noon. We have ground to cover before nightfall. They walked through the afternoon, staying off established trails, moving through dense forest where the canopy blocked most of the light. Eli taught her as they went, pointing out bear tracks and explaining how to tell if they were fresh, showing her which berries were safe to eat and which would kill her within hours. You're turning me into a mountain woman, Katherine said as they paused by a stream. I'm keeping you alive long enough to finish what you started. But there was something in his voice, almost fondness. though you're taking to it better than most. I spent my childhood wanting to explore, to see the world beyond my father's blacksmith shop. She refilled her water skin. Then I was sent to the convent and told to be quiet and obedient and grateful for the roof over my head. You weren't there by choice? My mother died when I was 16. My father couldn't afford to keep me and run his business. Father Dominic offered to take me into service at St. Mary's. Said it was charity. Her laugh was bitter. I didn't realize charity meant giving up every dream I'd ever had. Eli was quiet for a moment. After we stop Dominic, what will you do? Will you go back? To the convent? Katherine looked at him in surprise. No, never. Even if they'd take me back, which they won't, I couldn't. Not after. She gestured at the forest around them. Not after this. After knowing what it feels like to be free. Something passed across Eli's scarred face. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. Freedom's a hard thing to give up once you've tasted it. Is that why you stay in the mountains? To be free? I stay because the world down there is full of people like Dominic. People who'll smile while they steal from you. Who'll send you to DM and call it duty. Who'll betray you for money or power or just because they can. He stood, shouldered his pack. Up here, at least I know what the threats are. A bear doesn't pretend to be your friend before it kills you. They walked on in silence. As the sun began to set, they came to a ridge that overlooked a broad valley. Eli stopped, held up his hand. Katherine froze behind him. Below them, perhaps a quarter-mile distant, 3 riders moved through the trees. Even at this distance, Katherine could make out the glint of badges. Sheriff's men. They're ahead of us, Eli whispered. Must have guessed which route we'd take. What do we do? We go around, east, through the harder terrain. It'll add half a day to our journey, but we can't risk a confrontation. Not yet. He studied the valley below. They're patrolling, looking for signs of passage. We'll wait until full dark, then move. They hunkered down behind an outcropping of rock. Katherine's stomach growled. Eli pulled out venison jerky, and they chewed it slowly, making it last. Tell me about the Cherokee, Katherine said quietly. You said you know Chief Red Skywalker. We fought together during the war. Eli's voice was low, barely audible over the wind. He saved my life at Chattanooga, dragged me out of a burning supply depot when everyone else assumed I was dead. His son was with him. Boy couldn't have been more than 14, but he fought like a grown man. What happened to his son? Took a bullet meant for me 2 days later. Died in my arms. Eli's jaw tightened. Red Skywalker never blamed me. Should have. But he didn't. Said his son died with honor, protecting a brother in arms. You owe him. More than I can ever repay. Which is why when I read that ledger, when I saw what Dominic was doing to him and his people, Eli turned to look at her. Some debts you carry your whole life. This is my chance to lighten that load. Darkness fell completely. The riders below had moved on or made camp. Eli led the way down the ridge, moving east as he'd said, into terrain so rough that Katherine had to use both hands to climb in places. Her muscles screamed. Her fingers bled from gripping sharp rocks. But she didn't complain. They traveled through the night again, this brutal path that left no time for teaching or conversation. Just survival, just movement. Dawn found them exhausted, filthy, and in sight of Cherokee territory. Eli pointed to smoke rising in the distance. That's their main settlement. Another 2 hours. Will they welcome us? They'll welcome me. You? He shrugged. We'll find out. They were washing in a stream, preparing to approach the settlement, when they heard it. The snap of a branch, the rustle of leaves that wasn't wind. Eli's hand went to his rifle. Katherine grabbed hers. They pressed against the stream bank, waiting. 5 Cherokee warriors emerged from the forest, so silent Katherine hadn't heard them until they wanted to be heard. They were dressed in a mixture of traditional and modern clothing, carried rifles and bows with equal ease. Their faces were painted for war. The leader, a man about Eli's age with a scar across his chest, raised his rifle. Then recognition flashed across his face. Stone? Eli Stone? Running Wolf. Eli lowered his weapon. It's been a long time. 7 years. Running Wolf gestured, and the other warriors lowered their weapons. We heard you were dead, living like a ghost in the mountains. Not dead, just avoiding trouble. Eli nodded toward Katherine. This is Sister Katherine Morgan. She needs to speak with Chief Red Skywalker. It's urgent. Running Wolf's eyes narrowed as he studied Katherine. A white woman nun wants to speak with our chief? This must be interesting. He switched to Cherokee, speaking rapid fire to Eli. Eli responded in kind, his command of the language fluent. Katherine couldn't understand the words, but she caught the tone. Serious. Urgent. Running Wolf's expression darkened. He looked at Katherine with new eyes. Then he nodded once and gestured for them to follow. The Cherokee settlement wasn't what Katherine had expected. She'd heard stories in town about savages living in filth, barely human. The reality was nothing like that. The village was orderly, clean, built with skill and care. Homes made of logs and bark, a central fire pit where women were cooking, children playing under the watchful eyes of elders. But there was tension in the air. Warriors gathered in groups, checking weapons. Women worked with tight expressions. Everyone looked worried. They know something is wrong, Eli said quietly. They feel it. Running Wolf led them to the largest structure in the settlement, a long house with painted symbols above the entrance. He spoke to the guards, then gestured for Eli and Katherine to enter. Inside, seated on a raised platform covered with furs, was Chief Red Skywalker. He was 60 but looked older, his face deeply lined, his long hair more silver than black. But his eyes were sharp, missing nothing. When he saw Eli, those eyes widened. "The wolf who walks like a man," he said in English, his voice surprisingly strong. "You returned to us after many seasons." "Chief," Eli approached, went down on one knee. "I come with news, bad news." "Then speak it quickly. Bad news does not improve with waiting." Eli stood, pulled the ledger from his pack, handed it to Katherine. She stepped forward, her hands shaking slightly. "Chief Red Skywalker, my name is Katherine Morgan. I was a servant at St. Mary's Church in Blackwood Ridge. I found this ledger in Father Dominic's private office." She held it out. "It contains proof that he has been stealing from your people." The chief took the book, his weathered hands gentle as he opened it. His eyes scanned the pages. With each entry he read, his expression grew harder. "I cannot read all of these words," he said finally. "The writing of white men is difficult for these old eyes. But I see my name, I see my mark, and I see numbers that do not match what Father Dominic told me." 3 months ago, Katherine said, Father Dominic came to you with a contract. He said the Pacific Western Railroad Company wanted to lease land from you. Lease, not buy, for a fair price. Yes, this is what he told me. He lied. The contract he had you sign was a bill of sale. You didn't lease the land, you sold it. 2,000 acres for $20,000. The silence in the longhouse was absolute. "But Father Dominic told me we would receive $5,000 for the lease," Red Skywalker said slowly. "He kept $15,000 for himself. The railroad company paid $20,000 total. He forged your signature on additional documents and pocketed the difference." Katherine flipped pages, showing him entry after entry. "And the sale goes through next week, October 25th. Once those papers are filed with the Federal Land Office, this becomes legal. Your land will be gone forever." Red Skywalker stood. For an old man, he moved with surprising speed. He walked to the fire pit in the center of the long house, stared into the flames. "My father's father lived on that land," he said quietly. "My father hunted there as a boy. I taught my son to track deer in those forests." He turned to face them. "And now a man who speaks of the white god's love has stolen it through lies and false papers." "We can stop him," Eli said, "but we need your help." "How can I help? I am old. My people are few. The white man's law does not protect us." "Federal law does." Katherine stepped forward. "If we can prove Father Dominic committed fraud, if we can show he forged your signature and stole the money, the federal marshal can arrest him, can void the sale." "And how do we prove this?" "I have the ledger, physical evidence. But we need witnesses. We need people who will testify that Father Dominic lied to you about the contract. People who were there when he presented the papers." Red Skywalker was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I will testify. My council members will testify. We were all there when the papers were signed. He looked at Eli. But how do we reach this federal marshal? The nearest one is 3 days' ride from here, and Father Dominic has men searching for this woman. If we leave the safety of our lands, they will find us. The marshal needs to come here, Eli said, to Cherokee territory, on neutral ground where Dominic's men can't interfere. He pulled a map from his pack, spread it on the ground. There's a marshal stationed in Silverton, James Cole. I know him, fought with him during the war. If I can reach him, if I can show him the evidence, he'll come. Silverton is 2 days northeast. Red Skywalker studied the map. Through land where many of Sheriff Wade's men patrol. I know, but it's the only way. Then I will send warriors with you. Protection. No, Eli shook his head. A group of armed Cherokee riding through white settlements will cause panic. Will give Dominic an excuse to call in federal troops. I need to do this quietly. Alone? Yes, Katherine stepped forward. No, not alone. I'm coming with you. Both men turned to look at her. Eli's expression was thunderous. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. I'm already in danger. Those men know I'm alive. They're searching for me. At least if I'm with you, I can help. I can be an extra set of eyes, an extra pair of hands. You'll slow me down. I've kept up so far. This is different. This is traveling fast through populated areas. This is avoiding patrols and checkpoints. This is my fight, Katherine interrupted. That ledger only matters because I took it, because I recognize what it meant. I'm not sitting here safe while you risk your life alone. She crossed her arms. Besides, you need me. The marshal will want to hear my testimony. He'll want to know how I found the evidence. You can't give him that. Only I can. Eli looked like he wanted to argue more, but Red Skywalker laughed. It was a deep, genuine sound that filled the longhouse. She has the spirit of a warrior, this one. You cannot cage her any more than you can cage the windstone. The chief walked to Katherine, studied her face. You left your God's house to do what was right. You risked death to protect people you do not know. This is honor. This is courage. He placed his hand on her shoulder. You may stay among my people if you wish. We will protect you, or you may ride with the wolf. Either way, you have earned our respect. Katherine felt tears threaten, but pushed them back. Thank you, Chief. Red Skywalker nodded, then turned to Eli. When will you leave? Tonight. We'll rest here during the day, leave after dark. With luck, we'll reach Silverton in 2 days. Then rest, eat, gather your strength. The chief gestured to Running Wolf. Prepare food. Bring blankets. These travelers have come far and have farther still to go. They were given a small lodge on the edge of the settlement. Inside were sleeping mats, blankets, a small fire pit. A Cherokee woman brought them stew in wooden bowls, bread that was still warm, and clean water. Katherine ate like she was starving, which she realized she was. The past 3 days had been jerky and hardtack and exhaustion. This was the first real meal since Eli's rabbit soup in his cabin. When they finished, the woman returned to collect the bowls. She paused, looking at Katherine with curious eyes. You are brave, she said in heavily accented English. Or foolish, maybe both. Katherine smiled tiredly. I think foolish, but it's too late to turn back now. The woman laughed, then left them alone. Eli sat cross-legged by the fire, checking his rifle for the 100th time. Katherine watched him work, his large hands moving with practiced precision. You're angry with me for insisting I come, she said. Yes. Why? He looked up at her. Because if something happens to you, it's on me. Because I brought you into this. Because... He stopped, jaw working. Because what? Because you remind me of William. Young, idealistic, believing that doing the right thing will keep you safe. His eyes were hard. It won't. Good people die all the time. Sometimes they die because of the company they keep. Then I'll be careful. Careful isn't enough. Then I'll be more than careful. I'll be smart. I'll listen to you. I'll do exactly what you tell me to do. She moved closer to him. But I won't hide while others fight my battles. I can't live like that anymore. Eli stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed, a sound like wind through the trees. You're stubborn. I learned from the best. She gestured at him. You've lived alone for 7 years rather than compromise what you believe. That's different, is it? He didn't answer, just went back to cleaning his rifle. Katherine lay down on one of the sleeping mats. The furs were soft, the fire warm. She was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open. But before she slept, she looked over at Eli's broad back silhouetted against the fire. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything, for saving me, for believing me, for helping me fight back. Thank me when this is over, if we're both still alive. I will. She closed her eyes and sleep took her instantly. She woke to find Eli shaking her shoulder. Outside, it was dark again. Night had come while she slept. Time to move it, he said. We've got a long ride ahead. Running Wolf had provided them with 2 horses, sturdy mountain ponies that could navigate rough terrain. They were also given supplies, dried meat, water skins, blankets, and weapons. A bow and quiver of arrows for Katherine. Can you use this? Running Wolf asked. I can learn. Good. Less noise than a rifle. If you must kill, kill quietly. They rode out under a moonless sky, Eli leading, Katherine following close behind. The first hours passed in silence. They moved through forest paths only the Cherokee knew, trails that avoided settlements and main roads. As dawn approached, they stopped in a dense thicket to rest the horses and wait out the daylight. Eli showed Katherine how to string the bow, how to nock an arrow, how to draw and aim. Feel the tension in the string, he said, guiding her hand. Release when your breath stills. She loosed the arrow. It flew true for 10 yards, then curved left, vanishing into brush. Your elbow dropped. Again. 10 arrows later, her arms trembled with exhaustion. The 11th arrow struck bark, not center, but contact. Better, Eli said. You'll survive an ambush now, maybe. And they slept in shifts through the day. When night fell, again they rode on. The second night was harder. They were leaving Cherokee territory, entering land where Sheriff Wade's men patrolled regularly. Every sound made Katherine's heart race. Every shadow could be an ambush. Just after midnight, they heard it. Voices, men talking, the clink of bottles. Eli held up his fist. Stop. He dismounted, gestured for Katherine to do the same. They tied the horses to a tree and crept forward on foot. Through the trees, they saw a camp. 4 men sitting around a fire, drinking and laughing. Their horses were picketed nearby. They wore no uniforms, but Katherine recognized one of them. He'd been in church last Sunday, collecting donations for Father Dominic. Dominic's men, Eli whispered. Not official deputies, private hire. That means they can act outside the law. Can we go around? Not without adding hours to our journey, and we don't have hours to spare. He studied the camp. We wait, let them drink themselves stupid, then slip past when they're too drunk to notice. They waited an hour, then 2. The men kept drinking, kept talking. Katherine's legs cramped from crouching. Her back ached, but she didn't move. Finally, 3 of the 4 men rolled into their blankets, passed out drunk. The 4th one sat by the fire, supposedly on watch, but his head kept nodding, drooping. Now, Eli breathed. Slow, quiet. They began to move, step by careful step, staying low, using trees for cover. Katherine's heart hammered so loud she was sure the guard would hear it. They were almost past when her foot came down on a dry branch. It snapped. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the night silence. The guard's head jerked up. Who's there? Eli grabbed Katherine, pulled her behind a massive oak. They froze. The guard stood, rifle in hand. I heard something. Who's out there? One of the sleeping men groaned. Probably a deer. Sit down. I'm checking it out. Footsteps. Coming closer. The guard was walking right toward them. Eli's hand went to his knife. His eyes met Katherine's. In them, she saw the question. Could she do it? If it came to killing this man, could she? She didn't know. The guard was 10 feet away. 8, 6. Then from somewhere in the darkness came a sound. A low, rumbling growl. Definitely not human. Definitely dangerous. The guard stopped. What the hell was that? Another growl. Closer. Bear. The guard bolted back to camp. There's a damn bear out here. The other men scrambled awake, grabbing rifles. They fired into the woods, random shots that came nowhere near Eli and Katherine. In the chaos, Eli grabbed her hand and they ran. Silent as ghosts, they reached their horses, mounted, and rode hard into the night. A mile later, they stopped to rest the horses. Katherine was shaking. "There wasn't really a bear," she said. "No. You made that sound." "Yes." "How?" Eli smiled slightly. "Spent 7 years in these mountains. You learned to speak their language." He grew serious. "That was close. Too close. You need to watch where you step." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be better." But his tone was gentle. "You did well not panicking. Many people would have broken and run." They rode for another hour, thinking they were safe. Then Catherine's horse stumbled, whinnied in pain. Eli dismounted, checked the leg. "Lame," he said grimly. "She stepped in a hole. Can't carry you anymore." Catherine's heart sank. "What do we do?" "We double up on my horse, but we'll be slower, much slower." He looked at the horizon. "And Wade's men will catch up by dawn if we don't move faster than this." Katherine made a decision. "Then leave me. Hide me somewhere. You ride ahead, get the marshal, come back for me." "Absolutely not." "Eli, if we're both caught, Dominic wins. If you make it, there's still a chance." For a long moment, Eli stared at her. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled out his knife, cut a strip of leather from his saddle, and tied it around her wrist and his. "What are you doing?" "Making sure you can't do anything stupid while I'm not looking." His eyes were fierce. "We stay together. We fight together. We survive together, or we don't survive at all." Despite everything, Katherine felt tears threaten, not from fear, from something else entirely. They rode double through the night, bound together by leather and something far stronger. By dawn, they could see Silverton in the distance, a larger town than Blackwood Ridge, with actual streets and brick buildings. "Marshal's office is on the main street," Eli said. "But we can't just ride in. Sheriff Wade will have sent word. They'll be watching for you." "Then how do we reach the marshal?" "We wait until tonight. Slip into town after dark. Find the marshal at his home instead of his office." Eli steered his horse into a thick grove of cottonwoods. "We rest here during the day. Stay hidden. Stay quiet." They made a cold camp, no fire that might give away their position. Catherine's whole body ached. She'd been riding for 2 days straight with barely any sleep, but she couldn't rest, couldn't turn off her mind. "What if the marshal doesn't believe us?" she asked. "What if he thinks we're making it all up?" "He'll believe us. I know James Cole. He's a good man, honest." Eli was cleaning his rifle again, a nervous habit she'd noticed. "He'll look at that ledger and know it's real." "And then what?" "Then he rides to Cherokee territory, meets with Red Sky Walker, takes official statements, arrests Father Dominic when the railroad men show up." Eli set the rifle aside. "At least that's the plan." "Plans rarely survive contact with the enemy." "You sound like a soldier." "I sound like someone who's spent the past week running for her life." Katherine lay back on the grass, stared up through the leaves at the blue sky beyond. "A week ago, I was scrubbing floors and saying prayers. Now I'm hiding in the woods with a mountain man, planning to take down a corrupt priest with the help of a federal marshal and a Cherokee chief. It's insane." "Welcome to the real world. It's usually insane." She laughed despite herself. "Is that supposed to be comforting?" "No, it's supposed to be true." Eli lay down a few feet away from her. "Get some sleep. Tonight's going to be difficult." Katherine closed her eyes. But sleep was a long time coming. Too many thoughts, too many fears, too many possibilities of what could go wrong. When she finally dozed off, the sun was high overhead and birds were singing in the trees. She woke to full darkness and Eli's hand over her mouth. She jerked awake, panicked, until she saw his eyes. Calm, alert, warning her to be quiet. He removed his hand, pointed through the trees. She looked. 5 riders were passing on the road, not 50 yards from their hiding place. They carried torches, wore badges. Real deputies this time, not hired thugs. "They're doing a sweep," Eli breathed in her ear. "Looking for signs of travelers. Don't move. Don't even breathe loud." The riders passed slowly. One of them stopped, looked directly at their grove. Catherine's heart stopped. Then he shook his head, moved on. When they were gone, Eli exhaled slowly. "Too many patrols. Wade's got this whole area locked down tight." Can we still reach the marshal? We have to. But it's going to be riskier than I thought. He pulled the map out again, studied it by moonlight. There's another way, the cemetery. It backs up to the marshal's house. If we can slip in fro there, we might avoid the patrols. A cemetery? At night? That's not ominous at all. Eli actually smiled. You afraid of ghosts, Sister Katherine? No, I'm afraid of living men with guns. Ghosts I can handle. They left the horses tied in the grove, went on foot. It was slow going, staying off roads, moving through fields and back lots. Silverton was 3 times the size of Blackwood Ridge. More places to hide, but also more places for ambush. The cemetery sat on a hill overlooking the town. Old graves, some dating back 50 years, headstones leaning at crazy angles, iron fence with broken sections. They slipped through one of those broken sections, moved between the graves. The moon was up now, casting long shadows. Katherine tried not to think about the dead beneath her feet, tried not to imagine rotted hands reaching up from the earth. She was being foolish, childish. But night and fear did strange things to the mind. They reached the back fence. Beyond it, a row of houses. The third one from the right had a light burning in the window. That's his house, Eli said. Marshal Cole lives alone since his wife passed. If we're lucky, he's home. If we're not, he shrugged. They climbed the fence, dropped into Cole's backyard. The house was dark except for that single light. They crept to the back door. Eli knocked softly. 3 short raps. Nothing. He knocked again. A shadow moved behind the curtained window. Then the door opened a crack. A revolver barrel poked through. Behind it, a man's face, gray-bearded and suspicious. State your business or I shoot. James Cole, you ornery bastard. Put the gun down before you hurt yourself. Eli stepped into the light. It's Eli Stone. The marshal's eyes widened. Stone? Elijah Stone? I heard you were dead. Everyone keeps saying that. Do I look dead? Cole lowered the gun, opened the door wider. You look like you've been living rough. Like always. His eyes shifted to Katherine. Who's the nun? Katherine Morgan. She's the reason I'm here. We need to talk. Private and fast. Cole looked at them both for a long moment. Then he nodded. Get inside, quick, before someone sees you. They stepped into the warm house. It smelled of coffee and tobacco. The marshal shut the door, locked it, pulled the curtains closed. Talk, he said. And this better be good, Stone. I got half the lawmen in 3 counties looking for you two. There's paper out on both of you. Aiding a fugitive. Obstruction. Sheriff Wade wants you brought in dead or alive. Wade's corrupt, Eli said bluntly, working with a priest named Dominic Blackwell to defraud the Cherokee. We have proof. He pulled out the ledger. Cole took it, carried it to the lamp, began reading. His expression grew darker with each page. Sweet, merciful Christ, he muttered. This is federal fraud, land theft, forgery. He looked up at Katherine. Where did you get this? Father Dominic's office. I was cleaning his study and found it. And he knows you have it. He knows. He sent Sheriff Wade's men to kill me. They chased me into the mountains. I would have died if Eli hadn't found me. Cole set the ledger down, ran his hand through his gray hair. This is big. Bigger than I can handle alone. I'll need to contact the federal district judge. Get authorization to cross into Cherokee lands. Take official statements. How long will that take? Eli asked. 3 days minimum, maybe 4. We don't have 4 days. The railroad representatives arrive in Blackwood Ridge on October 25th. That's 3 days from now. Once that sale goes through, once the papers are filed, even this evidence might not be enough to void the transaction. Cole swore quietly. Then I move fast. First light tomorrow, I ride for the district court in Charleston. Get emergency authorization. Be back in Cherokee territory by the 24th. He looked at Katherine. You'll come with me. I'll need you to swear out an affidavit. I'll go wherever you need me to go. Good. Cole started gathering papers, preparing to travel. Then he stopped, looked at Eli. Where will you be? Going back to Cherokee lands, making sure Red Skywalker is ready, making sure nothing happens before you arrive. Stone, Wade's got men everywhere. They catch you alone, they'll kill you. They can try. Eli's smile was cold. Wouldn't be the first time someone's tried to kill me. Won't be the last. Cole shook his head but didn't argue. He knew Eli well enough to know it was pointless. You always were stubborn as a mule. Learn from the best. They finalized the plan. Cole would leave at dawn, take Katherine with him to Charleston under federal protection. Eli would slip out of Silverton tonight, ride back to warn Red Skywalker. They'd all meet in 3 days at Cherokee lands. And then, with federal authority and proof of fraud, they'd take down Father Dominic once and for all. It was a good plan, solid, smart. Katherine should have felt relieved. Instead, as she watched Eli prepare to leave, she felt her chest tighten with fear. Not for herself, for him. Be careful, she said, as he checked his weapons one last time. Always am. I mean it. You've risked everything for me. For this, don't get yourself killed now. Eli looked at her then, really looked at her, and something passed between them. Recognition, connection, a understanding that went deeper than words. You too, he said quietly. Stay close to Cole. Don't trust anyone else. And Katherine? He touched her shoulder, brief and gentle. When this is over, when Dominic's in chains and the Cherokee have their land back, what will you do? I don't know. Find a new life somewhere. Maybe out west. Maybe just... She shrugged. Somewhere I can be free. The mountains are always an option, if you want them. She understood what he was offering. A place, a home, with him. I might take you up on that, she said softly. He nodded once. Then he was gone, slipping out the back door into the night, disappearing into shadows like he'd never been there at all. Katherine stood at the window, watching the darkness where he'd vanished, and whispered a prayer. Not to any god, just to the universe, to fate, to whatever force shaped the world. Keep him safe. Please, just keep him safe. 3 days could feel like 3 years when you were waiting for everything to either fall into place or fall apart completely. Katherine spent those days in Charleston, giving her testimony to Federal District Judge Harlan Moore, a stern man in his 60s who listened to her story with the cold attention of someone who'd heard too many lies to believe anything easily. She swore out affidavits, answered questions, repeated herself a dozen times while court clerks took notes and lawyers conferred in hushed voices. Marshal Cole had been right. This was big. Federal fraud, land theft, conspiracy, forgery. Each charge carried years in prison. Together they could put Father Dominic away for the rest of his life. But first they had to prove it. And proving it meant getting everyone to Cherokee territory before the railroad deal closed. Before Dominic's fraud became legally untouchable, on the morning of October 24th, they rode out. Marshal Cole, Katherine, and 5 federal deputies, armed, authorized by Judge Moore himself to cross into Cherokee lands, take official statements, and if necessary, arrest anyone involved in the conspiracy. The ride took them all day. They pushed the horses hard, stopping only to water them and rest briefly. Katherine's thoughts kept drifting to Eli. Had he made it back safely? Were the Cherokee ready? Had Dominic sent men after him? She wouldn't know until they arrived. As sunset painted the sky orange and red, they crossed into Cherokee territory. Warriors met them at the border, painted for war, rifles ready. But Running Wolf was among them, and when he saw Marshal Cole's federal badge, he nodded. The chief is expecting you, he said. Follow me. They rode into the settlement as darkness fell. The whole tribe seemed to have gathered. Men, women, children. Everyone watching these white lawmen enter their lands. Katherine saw distrust on many faces, fear on others. The Cherokee had learned the hard way that federal authority often meant federal betrayal. But Chief Red Skywalker stood in the center of the settlement, tall and dignified despite his age, and beside him stood Eli. Katherine's breath caught. He was alive, whole. When his eyes found hers across the crowd, something in her chest loosened, relief so profound it made her dizzy. Marshal Cole dismounted, approached the chief. Chief Red Skywalker, I'm Federal Marshal James Cole. I have authorization from Judge Harlan Moore to take your testimony regarding fraudulent land transactions. May we speak? We may speak. The chief gestured to the longhouse. But first, eat. You have traveled far. In our tradition, we do not discuss war on empty stomachs. Cole looked like he wanted to argue, but Eli caught his eye and shook his head slightly. Don't insult them. This is their land, their rules. The marshal nodded. We would be honored to share a meal with you, Chief. They gathered in the longhouse. Food was brought, venison stew, cornbread, wild greens. Katherine sat between Eli and one of the federal deputies, acutely aware of Eli's presence. The warmth radiating from his large frame, the quiet steadiness of him. You made it, she said quietly as they ate. Did you doubt I would? Every second of every day. He almost smiled. I'm harder to kill than I look. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be comforting. It's supposed to be true. After the meal, they got down to business. Marshal Cole spread the ledger on the ground. Chief Red Sky Walker brought his council members forward. 5 older men who'd been present when Father Dominic presented the contract. One by one, they gave their testimony. They described how Dominic had come to them 3 months ago, speaking of friendship and mutual benefit. How he'd promised the railroad only wanted to lease land, not buy it. How he'd shown them papers covered in English words they couldn't read and assured them it was all legal and fair. He put his hand on his holy book and swore before his God that he spoke truth, one council member said. His voice was bitter. We believed him because we thought no man would lie while holding his God's word. Marshal Cole took notes. His deputies took notes. Everything was documented, official, legally binding. Then Cole turned to Katherine. Miss Morgan, please repeat your testimony for Chief Red Sky Walker and his council. Tell them what you found. So Katherine told the story again, how she'd discovered the ledger, how she'd recognized the fraud, how she'd run for her life when Father Dominic discovered what she knew. You risk death for people you do not know, Red Sky Walker said when she finished. For people your own kind often treat as less than human. Why? Katherine met his eyes. Because it was right. Because stealing is wrong no matter who the victim is. Because, she paused, searching for the right words. Because I've spent too many years doing what I was told without question. Following rules that protected men like Father Dominic while punishing people like me for being curious or speaking truth. I'm done being silent. Done being obedient to corruption. The chief studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You have a warrior's heart. Your father raised you well. My father, Katherine's voice caught. She turned to Eli. Did you hear anything about my father, about Sam Hawkins? Eli's expression darkened. Running Wolf sent scouts to Blackwood Ridge. They reported back yesterday. Your father is alive, but barely. Sheriff Wade's men beat him badly 3 days ago, trying to force him to reveal where you were hiding. Katherine stood so fast she knocked over her water cup. I have to go to him. You can't. Eli grabbed her arm, held her in place. It's a trap. Dominic knows you care about your father. He's using him as bait. I don't care. He's my father. He's hurt because of me. And he'll be avenged tomorrow, when we take Dominic down and all his crimes are exposed. Eli's grip was firm but gentle. Your father is strong. Doc Harrison is treating him. He'll survive. But only if you don't get yourself killed, walking into an obvious trap. Katherine wanted to argue, wanted to run to Blackwood Ridge right now, consequences be damned. But she knew Eli was right, knew that throwing herself at Dominic's mercy would accomplish nothing except getting her killed and leaving her father without justice. She sat back down, shaking with fury and fear and helplessness. Marshal Cole cleared his throat. Tomorrow is October 25th. The railroad representatives are scheduled to arrive in Blackwood Ridge at noon. Father Dominic will meet them at the church to finalize the transaction. He looked around the longhouse. We'll be there, all of us. We'll arrest Dominic in front of the railroad men, in front of the whole town. We'll show them the proof of his fraud, and we'll take him into federal custody. What if he runs? One of the deputies asked. He won't. He thinks he's won. Thinks Sister Katherine is dead and the ledger is lost. He has no reason to suspect we're coming. Cole's smile was grim. Pride makes men stupid. Dominic's pride will be his downfall. What about Sheriff Wade? Eli asked. He's Dominic's creature. He'll defend him. Wade can try, but federal authority supersedes local law. If he interferes, he'll join Dominic in chains. They planned through the night. Who would approach from which direction, how they'd surround the church, what they'd do if violence broke out. Every contingency covered, every possibility accounted for. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking. Katherine hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Her mind was too full of what was coming, of all the ways this could go wrong. She stepped outside the longhouse, breathed the cool morning air. Around her, the Cherokee settlement was waking. Children playing, women tending fires, men checking weapons. Normal life continuing even as war approached. Eli found her standing at the edge of the settlement, looking toward Blackwood Ridge in the distance. "You should rest," he said. "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see my father. See him hurt and alone. He's not alone. The whole town knows what happened. Many of them are angry. Dominic's been bleeding them dry for years. Your father's beating might be the thing that finally opens their eyes." Katherine turned to face him. In the early light, his scarred face looked almost gentle. "When this is over, what will you do?" "Go back to my cabin. Live my life," he paused. "Unless I have a reason to do something different." "What kind of reason?" He looked at her steadily. "The kind that involves not being alone anymore." Her heart did something complicated in her chest. "Eli, I'm not free. I took vows. Even if I broke them, even if the church released me, I have nothing. No money, no home, no skills except prayer and cleaning floors. You have survival skills now. You can track. You can shoot. You can read the forest." His voice was low, serious. "And you have courage. Real courage. The kind that matters. That's not enough to build a life on. It's more than most people have." He stepped closer. "Katherine, I'm not asking you to decide anything now. I'm not asking for promises or commitments. I'm just saying, when this is over, if you want a place to go, if you want to learn what real freedom looks like, my door is open." She wanted to say yes, wanted to throw herself into his arms and never look back. But fear held her frozen. Fear of making another wrong choice. Fear of trading one cage for another. "I'll think about it," she said finally. He nodded, didn't push. Just stood beside her as the sun climbed higher and the day of reckoning approached. By mid-morning, they were ready to ride. Marshal Cole, his 5 deputies, Katherine, Eli, Chief Red Skywalker, and 10 Cherokee warriors. An impressive force, enough to make even Sheriff Wade think twice about interfering. They rode hard for Blackwood Ridge. The morning was clear and cold, perfect weather for what was coming. As they approached the town, they split into 3 groups. Cole and 2 deputies would approach from the main road, official and visible. Eli and 3 warriors would circle around to the back of the church, cutting off escape routes. Katherine and Chief Red Skywalker, protected by the remaining deputies and warriors, would wait on the edge of town until the confrontation began. "I want to be there," Katherine protested. "I want to see his face when you arrest him." "You will be," Cole assured her, "but only after we've secured the situation. I'm not risking you getting shot in the crossfire." She wanted to argue but knew it was pointless. The marshal was right. She was a witness, not a soldier. They took their positions. Katherine and the chief sat on horseback on a hill overlooking the town. From here, she could see the church, see people gathering, see the fancy carriage that must belong to the railroad representatives pulling up to the church entrance. "It begins," Red Skywalker said quietly. Father Dominic stood on the church steps, resplendent in his finest robes. His round face was flushed with excitement and triumph. Beside him stood Sheriff Wade, trying to look official and failing. Behind them, a dozen townspeople had gathered to witness what they thought would be a celebration. 2 men in expensive suits climbed out of the carriage, the railroad representatives. They carried leather cases, presumably filled with contracts and money. "Father Dominic," the taller man said, extending his hand. "Henry Blackstone, Pacific Western Railroad. Pleasure to finally meet in person." "Mr. Blackstone," Dominic's voice oozed false warmth. "Welcome to Blackwood Ridge. Shall we finalize our business?" "One moment," Blackstone looked around. "Where is Chief Red Skywalker? I was told he'd be present to witness the final transfer." Unfortunately, the chief was unable to attend. Health issues, you understand. But I have his power of attorney." Dominic pulled papers from his robes. Everything is legal and proper. I see. Blackstone looked uncomfortable. Still, it would have been proper for him to be here. I assure you everything is in order. I'm sure it is. Nevertheless, a new voice interrupted, you might want to see this before you hand over any money. Marshal Cole stepped out of the crowd. His badge caught the morning sun. His 5 deputies spread out behind him, hands on their weapons. Dominic's face went from red to white. Marshal Cole, what an unexpected pleasure. I bet it is. Cole climbed the church steps until he was eye level with the priest. Father Dominic Blackwell, I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud, forgery, theft, and conspiracy to defraud the federal government. The crowd gasped. Blackstone stepped back, hand going to his case protectively. This is outrageous, Dominic sputtered. On what grounds? On the grounds that you forged Chief Red Sky Walker's signature on land sale documents. On the grounds that you told him he was leasing land when in fact you were selling it. On the grounds that you pocketed $15,000 that should have gone to the Cherokee tribe. Cole pulled out the ledger. And I have proof, your own handwritten ledger. Every transaction documented in your own writing. Sheriff Wade drew his pistol. You have no authority here, Cole. This is my jurisdiction. Federal warrant supersedes local authority, Wade. You know that. Cole didn't even look at the sheriff. Now put the gun down or join Dominic in chains. You can't prove anything, Dominic said, but his voice shook. That ledger is a forgery. Sister Katherine stole it and altered it to make me look guilty. Sister Katherine is alive, Cole said, despite your best efforts to have her killed. She's prepared to testify against you, as is Chief Red Sky Walker, as are multiple witnesses who were present when you presented the fraudulent contracts. Lies, all lies. Dominic looked at the crowd. Good people of Blackwood Ridge, this is a conspiracy against the church, against God himself. You know me. You've trusted me for years. Would I lie to you? Yes, said a voice from the crowd. Everyone turned. Doc Harrison stepped forward. Behind him came Mrs. Martha Jenkins. Behind her, a dozen other townspeople. You've been bleeding this town dry for years, Harrison said, charging exorbitant fees for services, skimming from the charity fund, forcing people into debt, and then taking their property when they couldn't pay. I have proof of that too, Cole said. It's all in the ledger, every crooked deal, every stolen dollar. Dominic's face twisted with rage. You sanctimonious fools, you think you're so righteous, but I built this church, I built this town. Without me, you'd all be nothing. Without you, Harrison said quietly, we might actually be free. Sheriff Wade still had his gun drawn. His hand was shaking. He looked at Dominic, then at Cole, then at the crowd of angry townspeople. Put the gun down, Wade, Cole said. It's over. Do it, Dominic hissed at the sheriff. Shoot him. Shoot them all if you have to. I'll protect you. I have friends in high places. Wade's gun wavered. For a moment, Katherine thought he might actually do it. Might start shooting and turn this into a massacre. Then a new voice spoke. Deep, calm, absolutely certain. No, you won't. Eli stepped out from behind the church, his rifle leveled at Wade. 3 Cherokee warriors flanked him, arrows knocked and drawn. More warriors appeared from other hiding spots. The church was surrounded. Drop the gun, Eli said, or I drop you. Wade looked into Eli's gray eyes and saw death looking back. His gun clattered to the wooden steps. Smart choice, Eli said. Marshal Cole moved fast. He had manacles on Dominic before the priest could react, iron cuffs clicking shut around pudgy wrists. Father Dominic Blackwell, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. This is persecution, Dominic shrieked. Religious persecution. You'll all burn in hell for this. Maybe, Cole said, but you'll burn in a federal prison first. He dragged Dominic down the steps. The crowd parted, silent. Many were crying, some from relief, some from shock. All of them witnessing the fall of a man they'd feared and trusted in equal measure. Blackstone, the railroad representative, stood frozen. Marshal, what does this mean for our transaction? It means there is no transaction. Chief Red Sky Walker rode into the square, Katherine beside him. The chief sat tall and proud on his horse, every inch the leader of his people. The land was never legally sold. The documents were forged. The money was stolen. Whatever deal you thought you had, it's void. But we've already invested. Take it up with Father Dominic. Sue him for fraud. I don't care. Red Skywalker's voice was hard. But that land belongs to my people. It has always belonged to my people. And it will continue to belong to my people. If you try to take it by force, we will fight. And this time, the federal government will be on our side. Blackstone looked at Marshal Cole. Cole nodded. He's right. This is a federal case now. The land sale is void. If your company has grievances, file them with the court. Blackstone deflated, all the arrogance and confidence gone. He turned to his companion. Pack it up. We're leaving. They climbed back into their carriage and drove away without another word. The crowd in the square seemed to exhale collectively. Years of tension, years of fear, released all at once. Katherine dismounted and pushed through the crowd. She had one destination, one person she needed to see. She found him sitting outside Doc Harrison's office. Sam Hawkins, her father. His face was bruised purple and yellow, one eye swollen shut. His hands were bandaged, but he was alive. And when he saw her, tears streamed down his beaten face. "Kathy," he whispered. "My girl, I thought I'd lost you." She ran to him, fell to her knees, wrapped her arms around him as gently as she could. "I'm here, Papa. I'm safe. And it's over. Father Dominic is arrested. Sheriff Wade, too. It's over." Sam sobbed against her shoulder. "They said you were dead. I wanted to believe you weren't, but they said you'd fallen, that nobody could survive." "I did fall, but someone found me. Someone saved me." She looked back at Eli, who stood at a distance, giving them privacy. "Someone reminded me that I was worth saving." Sam followed her gaze, saw the massive, scarred man with wild hair and wilder eyes. "That's him? The one who helped you?" "Yes, his name is Elijah Stone. Without him, I'd be dead, and Father Dominic would have gotten away with everything." Sam tried to stand. Katherine helped him. He walked slowly, painfully to where Eli stood. "Mr. Stone," Sam said. His voice was rough with emotion. "I don't have much. Lost my shop to Dominic's debt scheme. But whatever I have, it's yours. You saved my daughter's life. There's no way to repay that." Eli looked uncomfortable. "I don't need payment." Nevertheless, Sam held out his bandaged hand. "Thank you. From a grateful father. Thank you." Eli took the hand carefully, mindful of the injuries. "Your daughter saved herself. I just pointed her in the right direction." "Liar," Katherine said, but she was smiling. "You did a lot more than that." The rest of the day was chaos. Marshal Cole processed the arrests, took statements, gathered evidence. Federal deputies searched Father Dominic's office and found even more proof of corruption. Fake deeds, forged letters, years of systematic theft documented in meticulous detail. Sheriff Wade, faced with overwhelming evidence and his own cowardice, broke quickly. He confessed to everything, named everyone Dominic had bribed or blackmailed. The conspiracy went deeper than anyone had imagined. 2 judges, 3 councilmen, even the mayor had been taking kickbacks. By sunset, half the town's leadership was under arrest. Chief Red Skywalker addressed the crowd that evening. He stood in the town square, lit by torches, speaking in English so everyone could understand. "For many years, my people have suffered at the hands of men like Dominic. Men who speak of civilization while practicing savagery, who preach morality while stealing everything we have." His voice was strong, carrying across the silent square. "Today, that changes. Today, we have proof that not all white men are liars, that there are still those who believe in justice, who will fight for what is right even when it costs them." He gestured to Katherine. "This woman risked death to protect people she did not know. This is honor." He gestured to Eli. "This man came out of isolation to fight for a debt he owed. This is loyalty." He gestured to Marshal Cole. "This man used his authority to protect the powerless instead of oppressing them. This is justice. My people will remember this day. Will remember that in our darkest hour, allies appeared, and together we struck down corruption and reclaimed what was stolen." He raised his hand. "The Cherokee Nation thanks you." The crowd erupted in applause. Not everyone. Some people still looked angry, still couldn't accept that their beloved priest had been a criminal. But most were relieved. Most were grateful that the truth had finally come to light. Katherine found Eli later that night. He was preparing to leave, loading supplies onto his horse. "You're going already?" she asked. "My part is done. Cole has everything he needs. The Cherokee have their land back. You're safe." He tightened a strap. "Time I got back to my cabin." "Just like that? After everything we've been through? What else is there to do?" Katherine stepped closer. "You could stay. There will be trials. They'll need testimony from both of us. It could take weeks. I'm not good at staying in one place. Or maybe you're afraid." He finally looked at her. "Afraid of what?" "Of not being alone anymore. Of letting someone in." She touched his arm. "Eli, you saved my life. You taught me how to survive, how to fight. But more than that, you showed me what it means to have someone believe in you. To have someone stand beside you even when the whole world is against you." "Katherine, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to live the rest of your life hiding in the mountains." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Maybe we could build something together. A life, a home, whatever that looks like." Eli was quiet for a long time. "I'm not an easy man to live with. I'm used to silence, to solitude. I don't know how to be around people anymore." "Then we'll figure it out together. I don't know how to be free. I've spent my whole life following other people's rules. We're both learning." She smiled. "Might as well learn together." He studied her face in the torchlight. This woman who'd been so fragile when he found her, who'd become so strong, who'd faced down corruption and violence and never broken. "The cabin only has one room," he said finally. Her heart leaped. "I can sleep by the fire." "You'd hate it. No books, no society, no comforts." "I have books. We can get more, and as for society," she gestured at the town around them. "I think I've had enough of society for a while. And when winter comes, when you're snowed in for months with nobody but me for company, then I guess you better be interesting." Despite everything, Eli laughed. It was a rusty sound, like he'd forgotten how, but it was real. "You're insane." "Probably, but I'm alive. And I'm free, and I'm choosing this, choosing you, if you'll have me." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand was rough, calloused, but gentle. "I'll have you. God help us both." She kissed him then, right there in the street with half the town watching. Kissed him like she meant it, like this was the start of something instead of the end. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Eli rested his forehead against hers. "6 months," he said. "Give me 6 months. If you hate it, if you want to leave, I'll bring you anywhere you want to go. No questions asked." Deal. They were married 3 days later, not in the church which stood empty now with Father Dominic awaiting trial, but in the Cherokee settlement, with Chief Red Sky Walker officiating and both communities present. It wasn't a traditional Christian wedding. There were no vows about obedience or submission. Instead, they spoke promises of partnership, of mutual respect, of choosing each other every day. Sam Hawkins cried through the whole ceremony. Doc Harrison served as Eli's best man. Mrs. Jenkins cried and said it was the most romantic thing she'd ever seen. Marshall Cole gave them a horse as a wedding gift. "You'll need 2 if you're both living up in those mountains." Chief Red Sky Walker gave them blankets woven by Cherokee women. For the cold nights ahead, Running Wolf gave Eli a knife and told Katherine, "If he snores, use this." Everyone laughed. It felt good to laugh. After so much darkness, so much fear, laughter was a blessing. They left the next morning, Katherine riding beside Eli up the mountain paths she'd learned to navigate. Behind them, Blackwood Ridge continued its work of rebuilding. New elections would be held. New leadership chosen. The Cherokee land was officially protected by federal decree. Sam Hawkins had been given Father Dominic's house, seized by the federal government as proceeds of crime. Justice had been served. As they climbed higher into the mountains, Katherine looked back one last time, at the valley below, at the life she was leaving behind. "Regrets?" Eli asked. "Not even one." The cabin looked exactly as she remembered, small, rough, surrounded by wilderness. But when Eli opened the door and gestured for her to enter, Katherine saw something different than the first time. She saw home. Over the next weeks, they settled into a rhythm. Eli taught her more wilderness skills: how to tan hides, how to preserve meat for winter, how to read weather signs and predict storms. Katherine organized the chaos of his bachelor existence, created systems for storing food and supplies, even started a small garden near the cabin, planting herbs and vegetables that could survive the mountain climate. They talked, hours and hours of talking. Eli told her about the war, about the men he'd killed and the friends he'd lost, about the nightmares that still woke him some nights. Katherine told him about the convent, about the years of silent obedience, about the dreams she'd buried so deep she'd almost forgotten they existed. They learned each other. Eli's morning grumpiness until he had had coffee, Katherine's tendency to hum while she worked. The way he'd sometimes stand at the cabin door for 10 minutes just watching the forest. The way she'd read the same page of a book 3 times if something distracted her. And slowly, carefully, they learned to be not just partners, but something more. Something neither of them had quite believed was possible. One evening, 6 months after they'd married, they sat on the cabin steps watching the sunset. Snow would come soon. Already the nights were cold enough to see breath. "Are you happy?" Eli asked. Katherine considered the question seriously. Happy isn't quite the right word, but then, content maybe, peaceful, free. She looked at him. "I wake up every morning and remember I get to choose how I spend my day. That's still amazing to me." "And you don't miss it? The town? Other people?" "Sometimes. I miss my father, miss having someone to talk to besides you." She elbowed him gently. "No offense. None taken. But then I remember what I had before, the rules, the restrictions, the constant feeling that I was never quite good enough, never quite holy enough, never quite obedient enough." She shook her head. "I'll take lonely freedom over comfortable chains any day." Eli was quiet for a while. Then he said, "We could visit. Your father? Once a month, maybe. Stay a few days. Come back up here after." Katherine turned to look at him fully. "You'd do that? Go into town regularly, deal with people?" "For you, yes." "Eli Stone, are you getting soft on me?" "Maybe." He pulled her closer. "Or maybe I'm just realizing that isolation isn't the same as independence. That I can be free and still have connections. Still have," he paused, "still have you." She kissed him, long and slow and full of promises they were both learning to keep. When they broke apart, the sun had set completely. Stars were emerging overhead, brilliant and countless in the mountain darkness. "I have something to tell you," Katherine said. "What?" "I might be pregnant." Eli went completely still. "Might be?" "I'm not certain. It's early, but I'm late, and I've been feeling different." She looked at him nervously. "I know we never discussed children. I know this changes things." "Changes things," Eli repeated. Then he started laughing, deep, genuine laughter that shook his whole frame. Katherine punched his arm. "It's not funny." "It's not. It's just—" He pulled her into his lap, wrapped his arms around her. "A year ago I was living alone, convinced I'd die alone, and now I'm married to the most stubborn woman in 3 states, and she's telling me I'm going to be a father." He kissed her forehead. "Yeah, it changes things, makes them better." "You're not scared?" "Terrified, but that's good. Means I care. Means it matters." He rested his hand on her still flat stomach. "We'll figure it out. Together." "Together," Katherine agreed. 8 months later, in the early summer of 1893, Katherine gave birth to a daughter. The labor was long and difficult, but Cherokee women came to help, bringing herbs and knowledge. Sam Hawkins rode up the mountain to meet his granddaughter. Even Marshall Cole made the journey, bringing gifts. They named her Sarah, after Eli's mother. Sarah Grace Stone. She had her father's gray eyes and her mother's determined chin, and when she cried, which was often, her voice echoed through the mountains like she was claiming the wilderness as her birthright. Over the next years, more children followed. A son named William, after Eli's lost friend. Twin girls, Rachel and Rebecca. Another son, Samuel, named for Katherine's father. The cabin was expanded, then expanded again. Eventually, it became less a cabin and more a homestead, with multiple buildings, a barn, gardens, and even a small schoolhouse where Katherine taught not just her own children, but Cherokee children from the settlement below. Eli never fully lost his preference for solitude. Some days he'd disappear into the forest for hours, hunting or just walking, but he always came back, always kissed his wife and children, always sat by the fire and told stories of the old days when he'd lived alone and thought that was freedom. Real freedom, he'd say, isn't being alone. It's being with people who let you be yourself, who don't try to change you or control you, who just accept you. Katherine would smile and say, wise words from a man who once thought talking to humans was optional, and their children would laugh and beg for another story. On a warm evening in 1907, 15 years after Father Dominic's arrest, Katherine and Eli sat on their porch watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Sarah, now married with 2 children of her own, lived nearby. William was studying law in Charleston, determined to help people the way Marshall Cole had helped his parents. The twins were teaching at the Cherokee school. Samuel, only 12, was probably off in the woods somewhere, as wild as his father had ever been. "We did good," Katherine said. "We did," Eli agreed. "I never thought this would be my life. Wife, mother, teacher, living in the mountains like some kind of pioneer woman." "Any regrets?" Katherine thought about the question, about the girl she'd been, trapped in the convent, believing she had no choices, no future beyond service and obedience. She thought about the night she'd run through the forest, terrified and alone, clutching a ledger that proved corruption but could easily have gotten her killed. She thought about the moment Eli had found her, the moment she decided to fight instead of hide, the moment everything had changed. "No regrets," she said finally. "Not one." Eli took her hand. His hair was gray now, his beard more silver than brown. The scar on his face had faded but never disappeared. He looked older, weathered, but content in a way that young Eli never could have imagined. "Good, he said, "because I'm not letting you go back." She laughed. "Where would I go?" "Exactly." As darkness fell and the grandchildren were called inside, as the mountains settled into its evening quiet, Katherine Morganstone looked at the life she'd built. Not the life anyone had planned for her, not the life she'd been told she should want, but hers, completely and utterly hers. And that, she thought, was worth every risk she'd taken, every fear she'd faced, every moment of doubt and danger and desperate hope. She'd found freedom, not in the absence of others, but in the presence of people who loved her without trying to control her. She'd found justice, not perfect, not absolute, but real, the kind that changed lives and righted wrongs and proved that one person standing up could make a difference. And she'd found home, not in walls or buildings, but in the mountains, in her family, in the man beside her who'd saved her life by teaching her to save herself. The story that had begun with fear and flight had ended with peace and purpose. And as the stars emerged overhead, brilliant and countless in the mountain darkness, Katherine whispered a prayer, not to any god, just to the universe, to fate, to whatever force had brought her and Eli together. She whispered a prayer, not to any god, just to the universe, to fate, to whatever force had brought them together, for the fall that taught me to rise, for the fear that made me brave, for the man who showed me that freedom isn't the absence of connection. It's the courage to choose your own story, even when the world says you can't.